This will be a 1-hour webinar. Today, you have myself, Shannon Snaden. I'm the marketing specialist at Plant Protein Alliance, as well there's Barb Wilkinson, communications manager. We also have Maynard Kolskog, who's a certified research chef from NAIT, and Dana Gibson, who's the director of business development at NAIT. Thank you very much for joining us. We're excited to hear what you have to share. So here's a little bit about the Plant Protein Alliance of Alberta. We're all about helping to connect people so that Alberta can change state-of-the-art infrastructure, commercialize market-driven products, and we see ourselves as making plant proteins a key driver in the Alberta economy. So generally we do networking events in person. However, we have recently switched to online events. We also have 2 different newsletters, which you can sign up for on PPAA.ca. As well, we have a special promotion right now. We are offering an extra 3 months for new members to come and join us. We highly depend on our memberships to operate this group, and we encourage you to come and help to build a stronger value-added processing ecosystem for plant proteins. And now on to the special presentation.
Hi, my name is Maynard Kolskog, and I'm the certified research chef here at the Center for Culinary Innovation at NAIT. I was supposed to be going live today, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties, so this is pre-taped. You just got a glimpse of the Center for Culinary Innovation, and we actually have some cheese work going on over here with master cheesemaker Al Root, and we're going to be moving on to making some plant-based meats in a moment. So today I'm going to take you through the process of how we do our plant-based meats here at the Culinary Center for Innovation. There's been a lot of excitement, as anybody knows, about plant-based meats. Our approach, though, to plant-based meats is that we want to incorporate whole foods into them. We don't have a tabletop extruder, and we're not working with any type of extruded items. So one of the things that really gives us a big challenge is texture. And I'll take you through how we're working with that challenge. But first of all, I'll just start putting it together and I'll explain what I'm doing as I go along. So some of the whole foods that I'm using are mushrooms. These are portobello mushrooms, and we found that they had the best texture and flavor. They have a nice meaty texture to them. So I'm just going to load them into the PacoJet cup here. One thing that's very near and dear to my heart are Alberta pulses. So here we have some red kidney beans, and I think these kind of like approximate color, flavor, texture for a meat analog very, very well. Another ingredient that we started incorporating fairly recently are beets, and I have shredded beets here. Of course, we have lots of beets in Alberta, so it's a local product, but also too, it's going to give us some really nice color to our meat analog. So I'm going to be using a PacoJet beaker here and a PacoJet machine. This could be done at home simply by using any type of food processor, but we're going to use a PacoJet. It's a high-speed, very powerful food processor because we want to have a very, very fine texture on our meat analog. So let's tighten on the top here. And now it's going to go through the noisy process of pureeing up our ingredients here. So like I was mentioning, texture is very important, but there are also 2 other factors that are really important to our meat analog, or our plant-based meat. Of course, one being texture, very important, super challenging. Of course, then flavor, and then color and appearance of the meat. I think that we've found a good compromise and good approximation of flavor and color on our meat, and I'll go through that process of how we're able to achieve that. And the texturizing, like I mentioned, is very, very challenging, and we're not quite there yet, to be quite honest, but I think we're getting very, very close, considering that we're not using any type of modern extrusion equipment. These modern extrusion equipment, they can be quite expensive. Also, too, they can take up very, very large areas. We have 2,000 square feet in our lab here, but not enough to set up an actual type of industrial extruder. I'm just going to release the pressure in our PacoJet. This grinds under pressure too. The blade spins at about 3,000 RPM. Here's an example of the blade here, just like a little razor blade. And you can see, I'll just show you. We're getting a very fine texture, a puree almost, of our whole food products here, our beets, our mushrooms. And at this point, I have some diced up shallots. I really like the flavor of shallots in the meat analog. And this meat analog, we found that it has great applications not only for a burger, but in a drier format. It would be great for taco meat, or it could be great for bolognese or something like that. Let's give this another spin. So, as I was saying, a lot of the plant-based meat products out there are using extruded soy or vegetable proteins. And that's usually that's kind of the primary ingredient. And then of course there's flavors and gums that are incorporated into it. We kind of wanted to get away from that and use whole foods. We felt very, very passionate about Alberta crops, using local products, but also too just the nutrients and healthy aspects of using whole foods, as opposed to just extruded, texturized plant-based proteins. So we have experimented a little bit with those products, but we found that it really didn't add anything concrete or anything super desirable to the plant-based product that we've been doing. So a lot of it is always kind of coming back to your original idea. You want to try new things and new products, but sometimes your original ideas often turn out to be your best ideas. And I think that was very, very true with what we're trying to do with our plant-based meat analog that we're making today. So I don't know if you can see here, but we have, that's our pureed product here. Now I'm just going to add that to our Thermomix. Thermomix is just it's kind of a fancier food processor. This can heat products and cook them. We're not going to be doing that today in this piece of equipment. So if you are trying to make this at home, you can just go ahead and use any type of food processor. And like I mentioned before, you could process the mushrooms and beets and pulses all together in the same machine. We just use the PacoJet because we're able to get a finer puree from it. So we are using a plant-based protein, and this is mung bean protein. This is about 85% protein. And we're going to mix it and make kind of a slurry with vegetable oil. Now with this vegetable oil, you could use regular vegetable oil, but we've actually infused herbs and spices into this vegetable oil to flavor it. Of course, we are chefs here. Josh, my assistant, is doing the video taping today, and so he's kind of a man of many trades. But we're always thinking about flavor and what's the next step in flavor and how can we layer it. So like I mentioned, instead of just using regular vegetable oil, we've actually infused this with herbs and spices. So I'm just going to mix these two together and just make a very smooth slurry. And this will incorporate the protein into our analog really nicely. It's virtually an emulsification process that we're doing here. I'll show you that slurry that we have. I'm just going to put this in. Now I'm just going to give it a quick spin in the Thermomix. I usually like, as I incorporate the ingredients, I usually like to just kind of mix them in thoroughly, a few at a time, as opposed to dumping everything directly into our mixer here. The next thing that I'm going to incorporate now is we have some cooked quinoa. So quinoa is a complete protein, again, to another Alberta product. Lots of protein in it too, but also because of the granules, we're able to get the appearance of marbled fat, which is quite fascinating. So not only does it give some nice flavor, gives some great protein content, but also it's going to give our meat analog a little bit of a better appearance. So that's cooked quinoa, not raw. You don't want it crunchy. Now we've incorporated that in. Now another technique that we've discovered too is that when we're using the beets, we thought about, well, we have all of this beet juice left. So what would be better than actually adding something that kind of has the appearance of blood? That might kind of sound gross, but it's going to give more juiciness to our meat. And also too, the appearance is very appealing too as far as our color goes, very natural. So I'm just going to pour that in, and then I'm going to give that a spin. Now we can start adding some flavor components. So we really had to think about what are the different flavors in meats and how can we simulate them using vegetable-based products. One thing that we really like and we've actually made here in the lab with peas is miso. So miso has great umami, a little bit of salt, and that's one of the major flavor components that we're trying to simulate is the umami flavor of cooked meat. Another product that's going to give a little bit of color and texture, but also again that umami flavor, is going to be tomato paste. We also have nutritional yeast. This has a load of umami in it. Also, meat always has a little bit of sweetness, so we're going to use a little bit of brown sugar. Salt, of course. And for a little bit of color, a little bit of paprika. You might notice that we're not putting any type of smoke flavors into this. We have worked with that before, but we wanted more of a natural meat flavor as opposed to a processed meat flavor. So a little bit of smoke flavor, a little bit of smoked paprika even, can add some really great flavor dynamics to our plant-based meat, but we're not using them at this time because, like I say, we're going for more of a natural flavor. Without kind of dressing it up too much, I guess you could say we wanted to get as close to a natural flavor as we could possibly get. Now another trick that we have to do though is we have to put in the addition of some binders and emulsifiers. So this product right here is called Activa Transglutaminase. So it's basically made from enzymes, basically made from sugar fermentation, and they just extract the enzymes from it, and it binds proteins. So the quinoa, the mung bean protein, the beans, all of those proteins, as it cooks, when we steam it in our Rational oven, it's going to bind those proteins. So we're able to basically form a muscle, create our own muscle, and then we're able to grind that down like I'll demonstrate in a few minutes. Another product we need is, this is mono and diglycerides, and this is being used as an emulsifier. Because we have that oil in there, as this cooks in the Rational oven, and then as we grind it and then cook it again, we don't want that fat that we put in splitting back out of it. So it's very important that we have emulsifiers in there. We need a little bit too of a binder just so when we form that burger that it comes back together again nicely. And we're going to use a little bit of oat flour. So oats, of course, being a very prevalent crop in the prairies. We have used, on an experimental basis, we have used oat starch, which really works great. It has a great gelling factor to it. But in this particular meat analog, we don't want to use something that isn't commercially available. And this product, like I say, we got from the University of Alberta to experiment with. We found, like I said, we had great gelling properties to it. We really liked it in the meat analog. But on this demonstration, we're backing off of that simply because it's not commercially available. Now we're going to get to our texturizing product here. And this was a kind of a good find that we did a lot of research on. We did a lot of meat analogs where we just didn't know how we were going to achieve any type of nice chewy texture that you naturally get with meat. We were able to get like a good looking burger, a good tasting burger, but the texture was very soft, and we were kind of unhappy with that. In some cases it was quite dry depending on what different types of flours we were adding to the product. So we came across this product called Konjac Flour. So konjac is a tuber that's grown in Asia, and this actually comes under, we're able to purchase it as a dietary supplement called glucosamine. So like I say, it's a dietary supplement, very good for your intestines and for digestion. And we're finding that it's really, really great as a texturizer in our meat analog, because this creates an unmeltable gel. And so what that means is that as it cooks and as you eat it, that gel will not break down. So that's what creates our chewy textures. So we're only going to use about 15 grams in this case, so fairly small amount, a little goes a long way. But the trick is with this that we found is that we have to add it in and disperse it slowly as it's mixing. We've tried mixing it with liquid, just throwing it in, and what happens is that it'll clump. And we want a full dispersion throughout the entire mass of our plant-based meat analog. So I'm just going to turn that on, kind of a low speed, and just sprinkle that in lightly. And I'll just disperse throughout the whole meat analog without actually beginning to set up like a gel, which it will if we give it half a chance. And I can see there's no dry bits in there. Looks good. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this over to the other side of the room where I can wrap it up and vacuum pack it. And then we'll come back and we'll have a cooked example of it, and we'll grind it up into a burger and make a burger for you. So here we are at the wrap station. So I'm just going to remove our plant-based meat item here. Get out as much as I can. Now what I want to do in kind of the cooking business or the chef business, I want to really kind of create a torchon. So basically, I guess if you want to call it, basically you're calling it a log. I just want to form it into something that'll cook evenly. But what you'll find with this product is that we're actually creating a muscle. And we'll find that at the end of this, it'll actually have the texture of a muscle too. So we've kind of created our own plant-based meat muscle with this product. The next thing that I have to do is have to vacuum pack it. And that's going to kind of compress it, pull it all together so that it's nice and tight. We'll just let that vacuum pack. So the next step after this is that I would cook it in a steam oven. We're using a Rationale oven, which is a type of combi oven. I kind of find that the moist heat is much more desirable than to simply trying to roast it. We want to like keep as much of that moisture in that product as we possibly can. So if you wanted to do this at home, you could do a steaming, basically with a pot with a steamer in it. And I would probably go for about a good hour. That's what we do with the Rationale oven. So here's the product that we just vacuum packed. It hasn't been cooked yet, but here's an example of our cooked product. So you can kind of see it has nice gloss on the outside, just like a regular piece of meat would. And we're able to slice it and there's no crumbling. It holds together beautifully, just like a regular mussel. So we're just going to grind it up and then we're going to make a burger with it. Grinds very cleanly. Doesn't clog up the machine at all or stick in any of the parts. Pretty much just like regular meat. Just take that off. And you can see there, it's grinded up. It's holding together really nicely, just like regular meat textures would. So one thing that we thought about though, with our product was we would form that into a burger and fry it up, but it was missing something. The one thing that was missing, we do have vegetable oil in there, which adds to the mouthfeel, but we needed some more fat. So we had to create a plant-based fat. And this plant-based fat is made with an emulsification of coconut butter, CMC, which is a methylcellulose, and some water. And then we simply freeze it. In this case, I'll just cut off a small piece and then just roughly chop it. Basically, so it looks like irregular pieces of fat, and we can simply work that into our burger. And as the burger cooks, this will melt and it gives us that kind of more, I guess you could say, unctuous or succulent mouthfeel that a regular piece of meat or a regular burger would have. So let's work that in there. So we have a small burger here, probably weighing around 4 ounces or so. But as you can see, we have what would look at like fairly natural pieces of fat. A number of people enjoy lean burgers, but if you're going for a really good juicy burger, you'd probably use a regular ground beef as opposed to a lean ground beef. And that's what we're trying to approximate with this. But like I say, it's plant-based, good for you, and this is really going to give our burger some really, really good mouthfeel and some additional moisture. So now it's time to fry it up. So we're going to fry this in a Teflon pan. You'll find that the burger is very non-stick. We've grilled the burger before, works very well on a grill, doesn't break apart, doesn't stick. I'm just going to use a little bit of sunflower oil here. It's a very good healthy oil with a high smoke point, and of course produced right on the prairies. So as we look at our burger, the only product that isn't produced on the prairies is our Konjac flour. Everything else is from the mung bean protein right down to our vegetables, all produced in the prairies or in Alberta. So we have our bun ready to go. Another thing that I'm going to talk about in a moment is a plant-based cheese that we're going to melt on top. So of course, the nice thing about the plant-based burger too, we want to have it thoroughly cooked, but of course you're not worrying about problems like E. coli that can naturally be in ground beef that you purchase from the store. So you've made it yourself, it's all plant-based, The contaminants are very, very minimal in this product. So I don't know if you can go with a medium rare burger, but we certainly don't have to be super thorough about cooking it to well done. So as that's frying, I'll just talk about our plant-based cheese here. So we've made a meltable plant-based cheese. We've made different types of cheeses out of oats. And we've been able to ferment oats to make both blue cheese and a Gouda-style cheese with probiotics. And in the case of the blue cheese, we were able to use a Penicillium roqueforti, which is a natural blue cheese bacteria or starter culture that goes into a blue cheese, and it actually worked really, really well. So we thought about, well, can we make a meltable cheese? Because if those are made with oats, actual oats, it's not going to melt. We wanted a meltable cheese, so we cultured oat milk. So we added probiotics to oat milk, gave it a nice tanginess, and then we were able to, with flavorings and gums, we're able to make a meltable cheese, which I'm going to top our burger with. So I guess kind of what my model was with the cheese was more of a Velveeta type of cheese and texture. So we've used miso and nutritional yeast to flavor our cheese here. A little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And we're able to get a pretty good approximation of Velveeta cheese. And because we're using agar, which is a type of gum, very nice and meltable, we're able to melt the cheese. So we can see our burger cooking up nicely here. And you can see the fat already melting into it, which is really, really nice. That's kind of an indication of cooking for myself, is that when I see these pieces of fat melting on the top of the burger, I know it's pretty close to flipping it. So if anybody likes to cook meat burgers at home, you usually see the juices rising out of it. Time to flip the burger. With this, if you see that plant-based fat melting, it's probably a good indication you can flip the burger. So we can just flip it. And as you can see, there was no crumbling. It wasn't folding on me or anything. So it's nice and sturdy, but still palatable and soft. And the look of the burger, I think, is very, very natural too. So just let that other side cook and let that cheese melt on top of it. And we'll have our plant-based burger in a moment. So another nice cooking aspect of this too is that it gets a very, very nice natural type of crust on the top. It doesn't stay soft and mushy. You get a nice crust, and then because of the texturization that we've done and the pre-cooking, which is part of the texturization, we're able to get it where you've got really good natural texture happening with the burger. Cheese is softening up nicely on it. Okay, just going to remove the burger. Whoops. And there's our plant-based burger.
If anyone has any questions about the presentation, things that they'd like to share, it's now a good time to do it. We've got Maynard and Dana here to answer all of your questions. Just type them into the into the Zoom chat box, and they'll be read out by Barb.
So Dana, maybe you want to take the first, or as Dana and Maynard are both here, but Courtney's wondering if NAIT will be open to the public to try some of these foods, as Maynard's demonstration was very interesting, but obviously looks a little complicated and was using equipment that most home cooks don't have access to.
So We are not open to the public for serving foods. The Center for Culinary Innovation is a dedicated applied research center where we do work with food companies to develop new products. And so one of the big areas of development is in plant-based foods, and a lot of people are looking at meat analogs. And so this was one of the areas that Maynard has just been building his expertise in. But we're definitely open to chatting, to talk about what you could do at home with equipment that you do have.
Okay, thanks. So Maynard, they thought your burger looked quite delicious. They're wondering if you know about how many grams of protein were in that plant-based patty that you made.
No, actually, I haven't really measured it, just because you know, at this point, it's not for a client per se. It's just something that I've been trying to figure out on my own. And you know, when I was doing it, I knew that it needed, you know, a pretty good protein basis. So that's where the mung bean protein comes in and the quinoa. But I actually haven't figured out, you know, what the actual grammage, I guess you could say, if I just made up a word, the grammage would be per burger at this point.
Okay. And someone is wondering if you could explain the term meat analog. They weren't familiar with that.
I don't know. It's just something that I kind of heard, so we kind of adopted it.
Yeah, I
you know, we call it plant-based meat, but I think originally it was just, that was kind of like bridge to food and those types of plant-based proponents. They were using the term meat analog, and so we kind of picked up on that too. But I guess plant-based meat would probably be more of an appropriate term. Analog sounds pretty scientific, which it isn't. You know, we're not trying to make it scientific.
Right. I actually saw it used even back in the 70s. I think it's just another term for, I guess, meat alternatives. But it is, yeah, it's certainly an industry term. And yes, people have asked if we'll be sharing the video, and we will, and we'll edit it so all the lagging is out. So thank you for your patience of staying with us today. And so someone is wondering, how possible do you think it is to make this type of plant-based burger at home, and also the cheese at home?
A lot of the ingredients that I featured in that, I think I kind of mentioned that are quite readily available, and that's why we aren't using the oat starch. We found that it worked really well in the plant-based meat, but it's not commercially available, so we switched it over to oat flour. So a lot of those ingredients, like even things like Activa Transglutaminase, can be gotten from like Modernist Pantry, that type of website. Same with the mono and diglycerides. That's a fairly common baking emulsifier that you can pick up from just on the net. As far as the protein goes, among the protein that we're getting is quite readily available now from certain suppliers. You might have to get it on the internet though. But other than that, I think most of the other ingredients are available just in the grocery store.
So, and I know this question is, well, it's near and dear to PPAA's heart. It's one of our goals, and I know it's also one of your goals, but someone's wondering if it's possible for Alberta to come up with the equivalent of Impossible Meat and diversify Alberta's economy with plant-based economy. So, and she suggests starting with your recipe.
Well, you know, that's certainly what we're trying to do here at the center. Like I mentioned in the video, we have a real passion for local crops and prairie crops and local products. And I think that there is so much, there's so much possibility, so many possibilities with the different ingredients we have, whether it's oats or whether it's fractionated proteins. Our dairy products are fantastic. Like why we aren't a leader in cheese making in the world is kind of beyond me. But a lot of that is simply that everything is sold at commodity, and we haven't had a chance to really diversify our economy with value-added products. And it seems to be going in that direction now, but we certainly need a lot more investment. The excitement is there, but we need you need money to really get that type of thing up and going. So Dana and I, we really hope that our timing is good with the center, and that we can certainly help out with diversifying our economy and helping out with powering up for value-added products that we feel so proudly about.
Okay, great. I think that is it.
Thank you everyone for attending the 6th webinar. We will be sending out an email after with a link to the video. As well, we'll be posting it on ppaa.ca, and there will be a link to a post-event survey. Please do fill it out so that we know how to improve. If you're interested in learning more about Plant Protein Alliance membership, you can also go on to ppaa.ca. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everyone for joining us. Have a good afternoon.